Hello, curious minds. Welcome to this intellectual journey. Have you ever wondered something? Why is it that even when we know exactly what's good for us, we struggle so much to do it? Especially when it comes to something as simple and vital as disconnecting and simply being. You know you need a break. Your body is screaming for it. Your mind feels exhausted. Yet, instead of putting down your phone and closing your eyes, you reach for one last notification, one last video, one last stimulus. Why do we sabotage our own peace this way? The answer is complex and disturbing. It's not about a simple lack of willpower. We have been subtly conditioned to avoid silence. Your brain has been hijacked by a system designed to keep you constantly busy, and more importantly, distracted. To understand this trap, we first need to talk about a brain chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is often misinterpreted as the pleasure molecule, but in reality, it's the molecule of anticipation and motivation. It's the engine that drives us to seek rewards. Every notification, every like, every new video is a small, uncertain promise of reward. Neuroscientists from universities like Stanford have shown that the unpredictability of these digital rewards activates the dopamine system far more powerfully than predictable rewards. In essence, your phone and apps have become a slot machine. Every time you refresh your feed, you're pulling the lever, hoping for a prize. This action, repeated thousands of times, creates a compulsive loop that's almost impossible to break by sheer willpower alone. But brain chemistry is only one part of the equation. The second layer of this prison is sociological. We live in what's known as the attention economy. In this model, your time and focus aren't yours. They're a commodity, the most valuable resource of the 21st century. Multi-billion-dollar companies fiercely compete for every second of your conscious awareness. They hire psychologists, neuroscientists, and designers to create experiences so addictive that it's physically uncomfortable to look away. Your distraction is their business model. Their success depends on your inability to disconnect. Now, this leads us to a deeper, more personal question. Why do we cooperate so easily with this system? What is it that we fear finding in the silence and the stillness of simply being? This is where philosophy and psychology give us the darkest clue. Humans feel an ancestral fear of emptiness, a concept the Latins called horror vacui, the horror of empty space. For centuries, we filled that void with art, religion, community. Today, we fill it with an endless stream of irrelevant digital content. Constant distraction becomes a shield. It protects us from facing the big questions. Am I happy with my life? Do I have a purpose? Who am I really without my possessions, my status, or my online profile? The external noise drowns out the uncomfortable inner voice. A study on sensory deprivation showed something fascinating. Many participants preferred to administer painful electric shocks to themselves rather than be left alone with their thoughts without stimuli. Think about that for a moment. We prefer physical pain to mental stillness. That's how deep our fear runs. Furthermore, our culture has glorified being busy. We've internalized the idea that our worth as individuals is directly proportional to our productivity. Resting feels like a failure. Doing nothing is almost a sin in the religion of work and performance. This mindset, often called hustle culture, tells us that every free minute must be optimized, monetized, or used for self-improvement. Simply existing without a productive goal has become an act of transgression. So we have a toxic cocktail. On one side, technology designed to create addiction. On the other, a culture that shames us for resting. And deep down, our own fear of what we might find if we stop. It's the perfect storm for an exhausted mind. This creates a phenomenon that sociologists like Jean Baudrillard termed hyperreality. Hyperreality is a simulation or copy of reality that becomes more real, more attractive, and more desirable than reality itself. Think of it as an Instagram filter for your entire existence. In the digital world, we can curate our identity, silence the boring, and amplify the exciting. Real life, with its messiness, its pain, and its moments of quiet, simply can't compete. We've become addicted not just to stimulation, but to a false, enhanced version of life. Disconnecting, therefore, feels like an exile. It's abandoning the vibrant world of hyperreality to return to a reality we've learned to perceive as monotonous and disappointing. It's an act of bravery that requires relearning to find beauty in the imperfect and the real. Let's look at why. The brain is incredibly plastic, meaning it changes and adapts based on how we use it. Constant consumption of fast, fragmented content trains our brain to crave more of the same. We lose the ability to focus on long, deep tasks. It's what some authors call shallow reading, where we scan information for keywords instead of immersing ourselves in meaning. This extends beyond reading. We live a shallow life, scanning moments for stimuli instead of living them fully. So is there a way out of this invisible prison? Yes, there is, but it's not a quick fix or a new app. It's a fundamental shift in perspective. It's about understanding that the struggle isn't against technology, but for the sovereignty of your own consciousness. The first step is conscious recognition. Every time you feel the compulsive urge to check your phone, pause. Acknowledge the feeling. Don't judge it. Simply observe it. This small act of metacognition, which is thinking about your own thinking, is the beginning of freedom. The second step is to redefine boredom. We've learned to fear boredom, but in reality, it's the antechamber of creativity and introspection. It's in those moments of apparent inactivity that your brain processes information, connects ideas, and solves problems in the background. Allowing yourself to be bored is like letting a field lie fallow. It doesn't seem productive, but it's absolutely essential for something new and meaningful to grow. Embrace those moments of stillness instead of running from them. They are an act of mental fertilization. The third step, and perhaps the most radical, is to practice the art of doing nothing. This doesn't mean meditating for hours, though that can help. It means simply sitting on a bench and watching the world go by without a purpose, without a goal. It means listening to a music album without doing anything else. Here we come to the climax of our reflection. In the current context, disconnecting and simply being is not an act of laziness or cheap self-help. It's an act of rebellion. It's a political and philosophical statement. It's the reclamation of your most precious resource, your attention. It's telling the system that your mind is not for sale, that your consciousness is not a commodity to be exploited, that you choose depth over superficiality, reality over simulation, and inner peace over external validation. It's the quietest yet most powerful act of resistance. In summary, the reason we find it so hard to disconnect is because we're caught in a web of dopamine loops, social pressure, and a deep fear of introspection. It's a perfectly designed prison whose walls are invisible and whose bars we've helped forge ourselves. Thank you for joining me in this deep dive. Remembering the nature of our cage is the first step to finding freedom within it. It's not about destroying the cage, but about learning to open its door at will. If this video has made you think, subscribe for more explorations of the mind and society. And now I want to hear from you. Comment below, what's your biggest obstacle to disconnecting and simply being? Let's consider the architecture of our lives. Every space, every moment seems optimized for connection. Coffee shops have Wi-Fi, subways have coverage, even in nature we look for a signal. We've eliminated the empty spaces where the mind used to wander, dream, and process aimlessly. This environmental design creates a constant expectation of availability. We feel a social obligation to be always contactable, always ready to respond. Another person's digital silence can be interpreted as anger or disinterest. This social pressure is a powerful guardian of our prison. Future anthropologists might view our phones not as tools, but as ritualistic objects. We consult them upon waking, before eating, in moments of social uncertainty. They are an amulet against the demon of boredom and loneliness, a digital rosary connecting us to the deity of information. The paradox is that this hyper-connection often leads to a deeper disconnection. We connect with avatars and profiles, but we disconnect from the people sitting next to us. We disconnect from our own bodies, ignoring their signals of fatigue and stress in favor of digital stimulation. There's a concept in psychology called cognitive dissonance. It's the mental discomfort we feel when our actions contradict our beliefs. We know disconnecting is good, but we don't do it. To reduce that discomfort, we often change our belief. We convince ourselves that we need to be connected. Phrases like, "it's for work," "I have to stay informed," or "it's my only way to relax" are justifications our mind creates to relieve the tension between what we know is healthy and what our compulsion dictates. They are the logical bars that reinforce our cell. Now let's consider the impact on our memory. Neuroscience research suggests that memory consolidation, the process of converting experiences into long-term memories, occurs during periods of rest and reflection. When we eliminate downtime, we hinder our ability to remember our own lives. We become beings who consume experiences rather than live them. We travel to take the photo, we go to concerts to record the video. The experience itself becomes secondary to its digital documentation. The memory we retain isn't the sensory one, but its pale copy on a screen. Existentialist philosophers like Albert Camus spoke about the importance of confronting the absurd of existence. It's in stillness that we often feel that existential vertigo. Constant distraction is a way to flee from this fundamental confrontation, to pretend that life has a clear script and not a blank canvas. Thus, the act of being is also an act of acceptance, accepting the messiness, the uncertainty, the lack of answers. It's letting go of the illusion of control that the flow of information gives us and embracing the vulnerable and chaotic truth of direct human experience without filters or mediators. The solution, therefore, is not to demonize technology. The problem isn't the hammer, but believing that everything is a nail. The key lies in intentionality. Instead of allowing technology to use us, we must learn to use it as the tool it is and know when to put it away. This involves creating sanctuaries of disconnection. These can be sanctuaries of time, like the first hour of the day or Sunday afternoons, or they can be sanctuaries of space, like a room in the house where screens are not allowed. Small oases of analog reality in our digital desert. Resistance can also be social. Talking with friends and family about the importance of phone-free moments. Agreeing to device-free dinners. Normalizing not responding immediately. It's about collectively weaving a new social etiquette that values presence over telepresence. Think of it this way. Every moment you choose to look out a window instead of at a screen, every time you decide to walk without listening to a podcast, you are performing a small act of sabotage against the attention economy system. You are reclaiming a fragment of your own mind. The irony is that by constantly seeking optimization and efficiency, we lose a higher form of intelligence. The mind that wanders, the one that allows itself to waste time, is often the one that stumbles upon the most innovative solutions and the deepest thoughts. Inefficiency is at times the shortest path to genius. Our identity has become intertwined with our digital activity. I am what I share. Disconnecting feels like a small death, a temporary disappearance from the social world. The fear of irrelevance, of missing out, is one of the strongest chains that bind us. To counteract this, we need to cultivate an identity that is independent of online validation, an identity based on skills, real relationships, values, and internal experiences, a self that doesn't need to be posted to feel real. This is the true work of personal development in the digital age. Decision fatigue is another key factor. After a day of making hundreds of small decisions at work and in life, our willpower is depleted. At night, when we most need to disconnect, that's when we are most vulnerable to the path of least resistance, which is the easy stimulus of a screen. That's why the strategy shouldn't rely on willpower in the critical moment. It should be a design strategy. Leave your phone charging outside the bedroom at night. Put a book on your nightstand. Small changes in your environment make the right decision the easiest one. Nature is the most powerful antidote we have. Numerous studies, such as those from the University of Michigan, show that even brief periods in natural environments can restore attention, reduce stress, and improve mood. Nature demands nothing from us. It simply allows us to be. In nature, our senses tune into a different rhythm, slower and more complex. The sound of the wind, the smell of damp earth, the sight of a pattern on a leaf. These are forms of attention that anchor us in the present and free us from the tyranny of digital urgency. It's crucial to understand that you are not alone in this struggle. It's a defining condition of our time. Feeling the difficulty to disconnect doesn't make you weak or flawed. It makes you human in the 21st century. Self-compassion is fundamental to beginning to change. Distraction addiction works like any other addiction. Often what we're seeking isn't the object of the addiction itself, but an escape from underlying pain or discomfort. Ask yourself, what am I running from every time I grab my phone without thinking? Accepting that we have a problem is the first step. Not a moral problem, but a design problem between our Paleolithic brain and a superhuman digital environment. We are not built for this level of stimulation, and recognizing that incompatibility is liberating. Silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. Full of ideas you didn't know you had, feelings you hadn't allowed yourself to feel, and the person you are beneath all the layers of noise and expectations. The goal isn't to empty the mind, but to allow it to listen to itself. The practice of mindfulness is a direct training for this. It involves anchoring your attention in the present, usually through breathing. Every time your mind wanders, you gently bring it back. It's like doing push-ups for your attention muscle. Remember that digital platforms are designed with intermittent variable rewards? It's the same principle that makes gambling addictive. You never know when you'll receive the next big reward, so you keep checking. Knowing the magician's trick makes it less effective. At the end of the day, the question isn't how we can escape the digital world, but how we can live in it without losing ourselves. It's about cultivating an inner garden so rich and fascinating that the external world with all its bright lights sometimes pales in comparison. Every choice to disconnect is a vote for a deeper, more authentic life. It's a small victory in the great battle for the sovereignty of our consciousness. And those small victories, accumulated, are what will allow us finally to be free to simply be. This dilemma is not new. The philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote in the 17th century that all of humanity's unhappiness derives from a single thing, which is not knowing how to stay quietly in a room. Technology has only amplified this ancient human difficulty. The constant flow of information gives us an illusion of knowledge, but it's often superficial knowledge. We confuse being informed with being wise. Wisdom requires time, reflection, and silence, ingredients that our current media diet rarely provides. creativity also suffers. A meta-analysis of numerous studies confirmed that boredom is a catalyst for divergent thinking. That is, the ability to find multiple solutions to a problem. By eliminating boredom, we are in effect sabotaging our own capacity for innovation. We've adopted an inbox zero mentality for life. We try to respond to every stimulus, process every piece of information, as if life were a series of tasks to complete. But life isn't an email. It's not supposed to be managed, but lived. The ability to be alone is a sign of emotional maturity. It allows us to process emotions, understand ourselves, and develop internal resilience. If we always depend on external distraction to regulate our mood, we become incredibly fragile. The language we use reveals our mindset. We talk about spending time as if it were currency, but perhaps time isn't for spending, but for inhabiting. Simply being is shifting from an economy of temporal scarcity to one of present abundance. Empathy, the ability to feel what another feels, also requires attentional resources. When our mind is fragmented and constantly distracted, our capacity to connect deeply with others diminishes. We become more self-absorbed, trapped in our own bubble of stimuli. Even our sleep is affected. Blue light from screens suppresses melatonin, the sleep hormone. But beyond biology, bringing the anxiety of the digital world to bed creates a state of hypervigilance that prevents the deep, restorative rest we need. Thus, the inability to disconnect is not an isolated problem. It's a Gordian knot that affects our mental health, our relationships, our creativity, and our very perception of reality. Cutting it requires a brave decision and conscious effort. It's not a battle between good and evil, between real and virtual. It's about balance. It's about being citizens of both worlds, the digital and the analog, with the wisdom to know what each offers and when it's time to cross the border. Reclaiming our attention is reclaiming the authorship of our own lives. It's actively deciding what we give importance to, what we let into our minds, and what stories define our reality. Without that capacity for choice, we are merely characters in someone else's script. Interestingly, the more comfortable we feel in our own company, the less we need constant validation from others. Disconnection becomes not a deprivation, but a luxury, a sacred space to recharge and reconnect with our core self. The next time you feel the urge to fill a moment of silence, experiment. Resist for just a minute. Observe what happens. It might be uncomfortable at first, but in that discomfort often lies the seed of an important discovery about yourself. Recovering the ability to be is like regaining a superpower you didn't know you had lost. The power to be present, the power to think clearly, the power to connect genuinely, the power to be the master of your own mind. Modern society has created a hunger for stimuli, and it offers us an infinite banquet of mental junk food. Disconnecting is learning to ignore that banquet and start cultivating our own nutritional sustenance for the soul through reflection, creativity, and real connection. Finally, the act of being is not passive. It's an act of radical attention. It's giving your own existence the same undivided attention that corporations crave. It's looking at your life and saying, "This is enough. I am enough." And in that moment, the invisible prison dissolves. In conclusion, we resist stillness because an economic and cultural system pushes us towards noise, and our own psychology makes us fear silence. It's a perfectly designed trap, but understanding its mechanism is the map to escaping it. The true revolution of our time might not be technological, but a revolution of consciousness. A massive silent rebellion where millions of people consciously decide to turn off the noise and tune into the deep, quiet music of their own being. Choosing calm is choosing strength. Choosing silence is choosing clarity. Choosing to be is choosing to be free. The decision, as always, rests in the only place no one else can enter, the silent sanctuary of your own will. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the complexities of our modern mind. It's been an honor to explore these ideas with you. I hope it has provided you as much clarity as it has me. If this analysis has resonated with you, subscribe and hit the bell icon to not miss future intellectual journeys. Your support allows us to continue creating content that challenges and expands our perspective. Join the conversation.